Good evening and welcome to tonight's Yukon City Council Municipal Authority Work Session. It is January 17th, 2023 at 6:30. We're here in the council chambers, which is the Centennial Building at 12 South 5th Street in the great city of Yukon, Oklahoma. Tonight, we're going to have a discussion and presentation of the Oklahoma Department of Transportation, ODOT, Route 66 Sidewalk Project by Joe Davis of Team Design. Enlighten us.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, Vice Mayor, and Council. My name is again Joe Davis with Team Design. This is more of an update meeting. There's a few projects that are going that are actually great projects for the city of Yukon. We just wanted to kind of get you apprised what's going on. The first project we're going to talk about is the sidewalk project. So to kind of give you a little bit of back history on the project, District 4 went ahead and notified Yukon that they're going to do a street improvement program on State Highway 66. As part of that project, they wanted to go ahead and improve sidewalks. Part of the improvement on the sidewalks are going to make them ADA compatible, but what they were asking from Yukon is what type of extents do you want to see new sidewalks? So from that, the city of Yukon went ahead and developed a list, and that list is as we show on the map. So the yellow goes ahead and shows where the sidewalks would be proposed. So we start at Frisco Road and proceed to the east. So we're showing them on the south side of State Highway 66 from Frisco Road to Garth Brooks. And then we're showing them on both sides of the road from Garth Brooks to Cornwell. And then on one side of the road as we go to Yukon Parkway. And again, what the goal is here is to make it ADA compatible for people who are trying to visit the businesses up and down this corridor. So from that meeting we had with ODOT trying to identify what's going to happen in this corridor, ODOT went ahead and said, we'll go ahead and start paying for all the cost. So those costs are 100% cost of not only the construction, but pre-construction cost also. So they're paying for the design fees also. So one of the things they asked for, if we were to prioritize a section that would be the most impactful for the city of Yukon, we started talking about starting at Garth Brooks and then going to the east. And the stopping point was 6th Street. So they went ahead and did a study, a preliminary study. In that preliminary study, they looked at sidewalks on both sides of the street, similar to what we showed what the master plan was. And then they went ahead and started saying about what these improvements entail. So when we were looking at ADA compatibility, we're looking at how it gets across driveways, because you guys recognize we have some very large driveways there. We have to identify if a pedestrian's going across these really wide driveways, how do we have little safe islands for them to be in so cars won't turn into them on these really wide islands. We also have some conflicts with on-street parking, which is kind of on-street, off-street, that are utilizing some of those businesses there. Mm-hmm. And then we have some other elements that are hard to kind of work through. We have some steps that are there that don't meet ADA compliance. So how do we go ahead and start taking care of that? ODOT then at the end said what we'd like to do is spend $500,000 a year in the corridor for sidewalks. And again, all this was going to be paid for by ODOT. And again, the first project we talked about was going from Garth Brooks to 6th Street. So as we talked about, there's some challenges in these corridors, and these just a few pictures through there. The long driveways, the very wide driveways that we talked about. Commercial driveways are difficult. The sonic really actually kind of signages into the existing sidewalk out there. And when people are in that install on both sides, they actually are blocking the sidewalks, the existing sidewalks. And then when I talked about some of the streets, access at the street intersections, at 6th Street, there's about 3 or 4 steps right there. So as you can see, there's not a ramp there, so it doesn't meet ADA compliance. The study that was done for that first about a half-mile segment from Garth Brooks to 6th Street for both sides of the street to be improved was, as you can see, a little over $1.1 million. That's much more than the $500,000 budget that they set aside for the annual dollars that they're wanting to spend. So what do we do to go ahead and move forward on the project? District 4 came and met with the city of Yukon on December the 2nd. And from that, we started identifying how can we move forward and what are some of the options. One of the options that ODOT threw out there was, why don't we go ahead and wait a few years and include all the sidewalks at one time with the street improvements. It may be 6, 7, or 8 years from now, but do it as one package. Or we can still do it on an annual program. And the city of Yukon prefers going ahead, instead of waiting a long time, let's go ahead and keep it going on an annual basis. So once when the momentum gets started, we can keep the process going. ODOT recognizes, though, that there's an awful lot of conflicts that impact those property owners that abut State Highway 66. So the other thing they're going to be doing is having a stakeholder meeting. And again, this meeting is to apprise you guys when ODOT starts notifying property owners and they ask what's going on, you guys are updated and know what's happening. So again, that stakeholder meeting will be with those property owners to talk about improvements that's proposed right now. Not saying that those are going to be the ultimately what's going to be constructed, but to get their input at this time. So we can try to figure out how we can work together with the property owners. So that's kind of it with this phase. If you guys have any questions on the sidewalks.
Much needed, especially around 6th Street.
There are some challenges through that first section, probably even more challenges when we start going 6th Street to the east.
Right. Yeah, looking down the road, we don't want it to affect parking on Main Street, but we do need safety and a way for walking.
So to kind of roll it back a few years, quite a few years ago, when we were doing the improvement on the signals on Main Street, some of the requirements that ODOT first placed on Yukon was to eliminate all on-street parking. And when we had those conversations, we were able to convince ODOT at that time we cannot eliminate on-street parking because there's really no viable location for an off-street parking to serve those businesses. ODOT went ahead and listened. The only on-street parking we missed was those few parking spots that were in front of City Hall. So again, we only lost maybe 3 or 4 on-street parking places right there. And again, that was to go ahead and secure ODOT funding. On the sidewalks, they are not proposing us to lose any on-street parking. Now, as we say that, it makes it a challenge.
Yeah.
So today, that's what they're saying. When they go ahead and have the stakeholder meetings with everybody, we will reevaluate what that is. And where we are saying that we like to have sidewalks on both sides, it may be very difficult at some locations to be able to have ADA sidewalks on both sides.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions?
Can ODOT change their mind about the parking spaces, like next year, moving forward?
So generally, when they're allowed, they can't come back and take away that right unless there's an improvement project. So a few years ago, Yukon was looking at trying to do some enhancement sidewalks that eliminated maybe a couple of the on-street parking, and then trying to reach out to ODOT to see if they'd participate in that. Usually those elimination of on-street parking is a combination of a job that ODOT's wanting to try to do some improvements in the downtown area, and the city's wanting to go ahead and push those also.
Okay.
That's not what we're talking about today.
Right.
We are talking about just trying to get the sidewalks improved to ADA standards. Just because if they are being proposed, the city of Yukon can come back and say, we think it's going to be too detrimental to downtown if we go ahead and have ADA sidewalks through these entire stretches. So there could be pieces that we recommend for improvements, and other areas we recommend we can't get those improvements in.
Okay, thank you.
Again, we're going through the study phase right now.
Anyone else? I think this is an amazing thing. I look forward to seeing it unfold.
And again, the great thing about this, it's 100% ODOT funded, no participation from the city of Yukon. That goes to that long relationship that Yukon has forged with ODOT, that they actually want to try to reach out and help the city.
We appreciate
So
it.
you really need to congratulate your staff working so closely with ODOT.
Thank you, guys. All right.
So, drum roll, State Highway 4. This is the long-awaited project that we've had for 25 plus years. So it's finally coming to fruition. So these are kind of two pictures, kind of depict the corridor. The first phase that was done was, of course, the Canadian Bridge, and the North Canadian River was one of those structurally deficient bridges we've heard about that's been across the state on the state highway system. So that was a priority for ODOT to go ahead and have that project constructed first. So people may say, why was that constructed first? Why didn't we go ahead and do this other? The reason is because it was a structurally deficient bridge and needed to be replaced. So then the next thing we were doing was to the next phases, with the next phase being the Yukon phase. The last phase will be the Oklahoma City phase that takes it up to Northwest Expressway or State Highway 3. So luckily, Yukon's next in line, and a lot of that had to do with the city was on board with this project early on and started working with ODOT and utility relocates. And it's very large part of this job and the river crossing job was getting rid of the utilities or moving the utilities. We have parallel gas pipelines through here. We have water lines that run parallel through here, plus the electrical and cable lines running through here. So it was a very extensive utility relocation project. Let me go ahead and back up on that. The lower picture is the Wagner Road, the little bridge that's right there. It's a load-posted bridge, and ODOT went ahead and agreed to replace that as part of this project. We talked about doing the improvements on Wagner Road and why it was so important to do those. Just because it was in extremely poor condition was reason enough. The other reason is during construction, it's going to have to be used as a detour route because we're going to be doing some phase construction through here. So it was critical that Wagner Road was improved before this project gets started. So what about the project? And again, there's a concrete section that's through the town proper. That's basically around the first few blocks going from State Highway 66 to the north, where the Bronze is. That's going to be a 4-lane section with a dedicated left turn in the concrete section. And again, we see a lot better performance with a concrete section at signalized intersections because of the heavy truck traffic that we anticipate is going to be there. There's a lot of wheat trucks that drive up and down through this corridor. And when they get stopped at that intersection on hot days, if it's asphalt, they go ahead and start creating ruts. So ODOT went ahead and agreed to put the concrete in this area. As we move further to the north, it's going to be similar to the section you see out by the bridge, which is a 2-lane asphalt section with asphalt shoulders. So again, we're going to do a transition between those 4 concrete lanes going into that asphalt section. The original bridge, or the bridge that has just recently been constructed, is expandable to add an additional 2 lanes. So when the traffic warrants, ODOT will go ahead and pay for widening that bridge, and the asphalt lanes that we're building right now, which is 2 lanes of asphalt, and then those shoulders will be widened for an ultimate 4-lane section. And again, this was all designed for that future expansion. To go ahead and go, they had the bid opening, which we call letting, for ODOT was done this month, and the apparent low bidder was Schwartz Construction, or I should say Schwartz Paving. And you see what their bid is a little over $12.5 million. And we were happy with this because it was a little bit less than our engineer's estimate. Most of the jobs we've been seeing for the past year and a half has been 10 to 15% over our engineer's estimate. So ODOT got a very good price on this project. So the purple area, we started talking about what the concrete section was going to look like. The purple is going ahead and showing that concrete section. That's going to be basically that 4-lane section until you get up to the signalized intersection. And just like every intersection you see in town, there's that taper adding that additional left turn lane. And again, that's going to happen at this location. Then in the yellow is when we start making that transition from the 4-lane concrete to the asphalt section. And again, you guys have driven this corridor a bunch. You know, there's some obstacles we have to get around. You can see that there is a curve in the road to get around the power facility that's right there on the east side of the road. And of course, one of the big issues that we have to navigate around is Turtle Creek parallels. It's on the east side. So for a little bit of history, about 30 years ago, it was proposed that Turtle Creek was going to be in an enclosed storm sewer. But the environmental rules have changed so much, they basically say, don't touch it. So we have it opened up now. The bridge box that we talked about on Wagner Road is going to be replaced with a new bridge, concrete bridge, similar in style to what's out there. It's called a reinforced concrete box, and it will not be load posted. And again, we were happy that ODOT decided to include that in this project. Initially, they didn't want to, but they really saw what value that was for the entire project and in the corridor and went ahead and agreed to do it. We'll talk a little bit about the sequence of construction. At this time, the first phase is to go ahead and close everything down around the intersection of State Highway 6, or excuse me, State Highway 66 and State Highway 4. And again, it's a better construction job if we don't have traffic that's driving up and down as we're trying to pour concrete. Concrete takes a little bit of time to cure, similar to what you saw on Wagner Road. And the construction cycle that you saw there is we close down segments of the road to not allow traffic driving on it while it's being constructed. So that same philosophy we're going ahead and utilizing here so we can have a better end product. Then they'll go ahead and start with the asphalt sections. While we have it closed down, traffic will be detoured, and they'll be detoured to the east and to the west on Wagner Road. So it'll be in basically two phases. When we construct that bridge box that we're talking about on the east side of Wagner Road will be closed, and then the detour through that extent will be back to the west. With this project, since we recognize that there could be heavy traffic on the detours, we also included asphalt to do repairs to the road on our detour sections. So we'll make sure that if there's any damage done to the roads during the detours, that the cost is included in the contract. So we'll go ahead and talk about what the schedule is. We talked about the let date. And again, the let date was on January the 12th, which is our bid opening date. And then they'll do award the first highway meeting, the first ODOT meeting, which will be February the 6th. And then they have what's called a flex start date. And the flex start date basically tells the contractor he has a window when he can get started. So the flex start date here is mid-March to early June of this year. And then his contract days will start. And you can see it's a 445 calendar day job. So that's about 1 year and 3 months. So hopefully by the end of the summer of next year, the project should be close to being completed. And again, it's based on that flex start date. We talked a little bit about the sequence of construction. So the question is going to be, how long is it going to be closed when they're building the concrete section? So you can see what we have. There's 35 calendar days for the construction of the concrete section. So we anticipate it'll be the 35 days. And the idea is incentive, disincentive. So every day after those 35 days, the contractor will be charged $20,000 a day. And every day sooner than that 35 days, he'll get the incentive for $20,000 a day. So again, the intent is to try to get him in and out as fast as possible and trying to get the cars back where they're used to being on State Highway 4. And then we talked a little bit about the last phases, which is the 6 and 7 phases of our jobs, and that's basically on how we're detouring on Wagner Road. So with that, does anybody have any questions?
I do. Could you go back to where you had both sections of road? Yeah.
Okay.
So there's at least 3 properties there whose driveways go directly on the Highway 4. Are we moving west? About how many feet west is the road moving? And that's just the real question is, what about their driveways?
Yeah. So on the plans, how about if I kind of go through the process?
That's fine.
So when we acquire permanent right-of-way and temporary easements for construction of the driveways, all that's already been arranged with the property owners. So they've already seen where their driveways are going to be located. Same thing that happened when we did the first project. There was a few large properties there, especially the large, parcel that's on the west side. And again, we work with the property owners on driveway locations and the type of driveway that's going to be there.
Okay.
The bigger issues probably on this job was the utility relocates.
Any other questions? Concerns? This is a project that's been long coming, and we are so thankful that it's finally here.
I think ODOT's happy that's finally got to let date also, and I'm sure staff has, because they're the ones who've really been dogging the utility companies getting them relocated.
Very thankful. Okay. No one else has any questions?
This doesn't directly relate to this project, but you said the Oklahoma City would be after that?
That's
from
correct.
To Expressway.
That's correct.
Is there a rough start time on that and end time on that?
So we anticipate it's going to be next year. So right away, I believe as utilities are being relocated at this time, 100% plans are getting ready to get submitted on it. There's a couple design elements, additional intersection that was going to be signalized as we moved to the far north end of the project. But again, the let dates have been bumping just a little bit because of utilities. So I can go ahead and check up and then let the city manager understand when that anticipated let date's going to be for that project. They originally scheduled to be within a year of each other.
And is there plans for any lights at all on anywhere in between there?
So there are
Closer
no,
to our side.
there's no street lighting that's proposed on the project. I think that's what your question
Or
was.
signal lights or anything?
No signal lights between here. There is one signal, a half mile, I believe it's about a half mile to a mile south of State Highway 3. So it's kind of escaped me the name of that street, but it's the street that goes into Surrey Hills.
Gotcha. Okay,
Well, that's
thank you.
just the flashing light.
Yeah.
Well, it's going to be a signalized.
It will be a
signalized
signal light
intersection.
then?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Any other questions? All right, thank you so much. We appreciate you, and we look forward to all this coming to fruition. All
Thank
right?
you.
Thank you. We will close our work session and reconvene in about 8 minutes.